Highlights are great. After all, they're called highlights for a reason, but many times it's the lesser-known corners of history which are the most interesting. Fighting for the short written passages or the few coveted photographs, the window into history's more obscure is becoming narrower each day. But every once in a while, something comes along that opens that window, allowing you to look inside and uncover a world worth seeing, one you couldn't have imagined not existing just moments earlier, one which reminds you just how large this crazy world is. This is GP Laps, and today a trip through rural Canada at fantastic Mont Tremblant. Before there were race cars, Mont Tremblant was historically a ski town. Located a short 90 miles north of Montreal, it's long been a winter destination for all of northeastern North America. But the crowds of winter dwindled each summer, and too did the prosperity of the sleepy hamlet as it lay dormant. Local hotel owner Lee Sampson wanted to change that. Inspired by trips with his father as a youngster to Montreal to see automobile races through the city streets, Lee sought to create a world-class racing circuit to bring the eyes of the motorsports world to Mont Tremblant in those much-needed summer months. Originally opened as a 1.5-mile course in 1964, it was expanded to its full 2.65-mile length the following year. Known at first by the original name of the village nearby, St. Jovite, Le Circuit, as it's still affectionately called, is a mighty course. Carved directly into the hills and terrain is how it could best be described. The flowing road course was a formidable challenge, with narrow tarmac, blind crests, and several hills, including the memorable hump, where cars would leap from the ground. Sometimes compared to the mighty Nürburgring, not for its length, but for its twisting nature, Mont Tremblant quickly earned a reputation for a fast, exciting, but dangerous circuit. Beginning with local sports car and junior formula racing, it was 1966 where the track saw its first major international event, the first ever round of the Canadian American Challenge Cup, or more commonly known as Can-Am. This sports car prototype series was a new exciting late-season championship run to Group 7 regulations. As long as the car had 2 seats and fenders around the wheels, it was clear to race. A real run-what-you-brung type series, the closest to complete open competition of any motorsports series in the world. And although relatively tame compared to the efforts of later years, a grid of shocking low-slung prototypes entered, mainly from Lola, Cooper, McLaren, and later Chaparral, fitted with large block American V8s tuned to output upwards of 550 horsepower, and all while weighing only 1,500 pounds. It was a true racer series. And so for 1966, the world's eyes intensely focused on the small town of St. Jovite and Mont Tremblant for the beginning of this exciting series. Drawing contemporary motorsports royalty, the race brought drivers such as Parnelli Jones, Ronnie Bucknam, Sam Posey, Mark Donohue driving for Roger Penske's team, Chris Amon and Bruce McLaren for McLaren's factory effort, and 1965 World Drivers' Champion John Surtees and his own back team, amongst many others. Surtees would take the win at the inaugural event, ushering in the age of large events for Mont Tremblant. The following year in 1967 and again in 1968 came USAC's IndyCars for a pair of doubleheader events, swept by none other than Mario Andretti himself. The natural terrain road course proved it could handle fast open wheelers and was finally poised for the granddaddy of them all. And so for 1968, it was the Formula One World Championship, completing Lee Sampson's dream and bringing the world to sleepy Mont Tremblant for the Canadian Grand Prix. With the beautiful rainbow backdrop of Canada's fall colors, the Grand Prix cars with their newfound downforce set blistering lap times around the course. But the rough nature of the circuit surface and punishing dips and rises would pay its toll on the fragile machines. Championship leader Jackie Ickx crashed his Ferrari in practice due to a stuck throttle, injuring Ickx and ending his hopes for the championship. But in an effort to avenge his teammate's misfortune, Chris Amon put his Ferrari second on the grid behind Jochen Rindt. But it wasn't to be Ferrari's day. In a race which saw only 5 of the 20 starters finish, Chris Amon looked poised for victory until transmission trouble just 18 laps from the finish, handing the win to Denny Hulme for McLaren. A dramatic race for the spectators and a memorable stop on the calendar. Mont Tremblant would hand the Canadian Grand Prix back to Mosport for 1969, but again, in 1970, the circus would return for Part 2. In its second edition, Jackie Ickx would redeem himself with a victory after taking the lead from Jackie Stewart's failing Tyrrell just 30 laps into the Grand Prix. Drivers begrudgingly loved the dangerous Mont Tremblant, for its sensation of driving could not be understated. But although the Grand Prix did draw spectators from wide and far to the small Canadian village, the sport itself was outgrowing the campy nature of the venue. The Grand Prix would move back to the less remote Massport for the remainder of the 70s, before moving to its permanent home on the Ile Notre Dame in downtown Montreal, where it's still run to this day. Mont Tremblant saw 2 more Can-Am races in the late 70s amongst a mix of other more local racing series. But by this time, the facility was beginning to fall into disrepair and could no longer meet the increasing safety and amenity requirements to hold major international racing. The 80s and into the 90s looked like the end for the track, changing owners several times and falling into complete disrepair. But in 2000, the facility was purchased by the rather topical Lawrence Stroll, Canadian fashion mogul. Stroll was interested in restoring and preserving the historic facility, widening, repaving, and reprofiling some of the corners. The investments made it more than fit for modern race cars. And so in the mid-2000s, a relative resurgence, Mont Tremblant held both Grand Am sports cars and a solitary champ car race before the reunification of IndyCar, as well as much-loved vintage events, allowing occasionally the sound of a finely tuned V8 or the buzz of a vintage Formula V12 to once again ring through the hills and relive some of that former glory. And so Mont Tremblant has been released for Assetto Corsa, modeled at its very height, as it was for Formula 1 in the late 60s by user P. Cody at Race Department. A long time in the making, the circuit was modeled using LiDAR data for elevations and countless hours of research and tweaking to reproduce not only an accurate representation of the circuit, but the entire surrounding area. The track includes a 20 by 20 kilometer or 12-mile area of surrounding hills, mountains, and lakes to create a natural, realistic horizon. Dotted across the hills, pathways, and every good viewing area are custom 2D vintage spectators to fully capture the 60s carnival-like atmosphere. The track surface has a fully detailed physical road mesh to help experience what driving the ultra-bumpy circuit was like, and contains custom configurations for most custom shader patch options, allowing for full wet running and detailed procedurally generated vegetation. Driving and enjoying this circuit have been one of the most delightful sim experiences I've had in quite a long time. Having such a detailed and highly accurate recreation of something original and maybe lesser known really transports you back to a time when the sport we all loved was something very different. It's always fun to blast around the straightaways of Spa-Francorchamps or rocket through the forests of the Nürburgring, but around this little Canadian gem, every corner is new, every crest an unknown adventure. St. Jovite was recreated from a place of passion and love for Grand Prix and Canadian motorsports history, and it's fantastic to drive. So, let's experience it. Lined up is a recreation of that very first major event, the 1966 Can-Am Series. It's for a 10-lap race through the hills. Driving Surtees' race-winning Lola T70 Mark II, the sleepy town is about to be awoken by the sound of 500 horsepower American V8 engines. The perfect morning alarm, if you ask me. Alright, here we are on the grid behind Mark Donohue, Chris Amon. Lights are lit. Out, we're underway. Fighting the wheel spin off the grid here, get up to second gear. I've got Dan Gurney behind me as they'll make a little contact in front, head into turn number 3. Oh, Gurney slides up my inside as well, come over the top of the crest. Track falls away, but nowhere to go. I got Donohue in front, just babying the throttle here. Gurney able to slide up the inside as we'll come into the S's, but I'll have the apex through turn 5. Understeer quite a lot. All right, but get on the throttle. Get through there all right. Field behind seems to as well. Into turn 6, very flat, long corner to the left. Turn 7 up ahead, very much the same, down to second gear. Stepping out a little bit. The gears, keep it in third gear in this opening lap, down to the carousel. Second gear, Donohue's going to look to the inside of Amon. through the long carousel to the right. We should be able to make the pass, kicking up a bunch of dust. We'll try to get a nice run here coming out towards the infamous hump, side by side with Eamon. Just get in front of him before it. Car gets a bit airborne, and then heavy on the brakes for turn 10. Luckily, this one has a bit of runoff if you do run wide. And then into a tighter sequence of bends here. Second gear to the left. Reminds me a lot of Road America. Through the gulch, as they call it, up the hill. First gear under the bridge corner. And try to get the power down once again. Oh, a meander to the right, understeering the whole way to the final corner, or one of the final corners, down to first gear for the slow name row corner. Just lock up the brakes there over the crest as the track fell away. We get back up the gears. All right. Up through the final corner, paddock bend, and across the line. No start-finish straightaway or anything like that. Right back into the lap. So up to P3, 9 laps to go. I got Mark Donohue right in front. And then Bruce McLaren stretching out a nice little lead. Down to second gear. Fighting the car quite a lot. It's understeering. Once we get the tires up to temp, it behaves a bit better. See if we can make our way past Donohue here. I think I'm a lot quicker than him. I'm not sure about McLaren. We'll have to see. Into turn 7, down to second gear. Spit of flame from the Penske in front. It's also a Lola, though. Same car I'm driving. Entered by the Penske team. Down to second gear. Locked up the tires once again. Shot a bit wide. Long carousel. Not quite as wide as something like a Road America carousel. A bit of a power slide on the way out, though. It actually helped me. I don't really want to pass through here, though. We'll slide in behind Donohue up to fourth gear, over the rise. Kicks up the dust. See if I can get him on braking here into turn 10. No, he's late on the brakes. Second gear. Bad entry to the corner. Just trying to follow him. We're going to run a bit wide through the gulch. All right, I got Eamon right behind me to keep me honest, though. Racing around this track, if you haven't already noticed, is quite awesome. It's like dogfighting. The track keeps you so busy, turning from the left into the right and braking and accelerating, especially driving an H-pattern car like we are here. So I'll bottle it up a bit into name row, like Eamon up the inside then. Should be able to get him, though, through paddock bend and across the line. He's right there, though. Nice and easy. You want to go a lot quicker through here, but you really can't because the track falls away and the car just skips to the outside just like that. Got to get back to Donohue here. Up to third gear. Definitely have to plan your passes, though. It's quite a narrow circuit and almost the whole thing, but there are a few good passing opportunities amongst the myriad of corners. Throwing a few lapped cars, which may happen here, and things will get very interesting. One thing that struck me, though, is how good the AI are at racing around here, especially in cars like these. Assetto Corsa is not super well known. As I get a run on Donohue, once again coming up to the hump, gonna fall in line, chicken out of it. Might be able to make it through there, but I don't think he'd pass there in real life. All right, down to third gear, down to second. He's quite slow into turn 10. Oh, he runs a bit wide. See if I can get the power down a little earlier through the gulch, down to first gear, up the hill, bridge corner. Keep it nice and tight. Slide the rear end out. Yeah, able to close the door on him. There we go. Around Donohue then. Right down to first gear. Into name row. Hold on to it, hopefully. And stretch out. Try to catch McLaren in front. Short race, 10 laps here, but just enough to get a good taste of the circuit. Quite a fun track. All right, 7 laps to go, P2. See if I can match McLaren on pace. Just wait for the car there over the turn 3 rise. Down to second gear. And one of the things that makes this track awesome is the detailed road surface. Hopefully you can see as we're driving around just how many bumps and little divots and things are in the track. They're not super high pronounced, so it's not like the wheels shaking out of your hands, but depending on where you position the car in the corner, as I just understeer so much there, depending on how you position the car entering the corner, you can have dramatically different turns and braking zones, and you might wonder why one lap you're able to get the car slowed down very easily and the next lap you can't as the car is hitting bumps. Paired with a really nice physics car, it's a beautiful circuit to drive. This Lola T70 fits the bill. It's actually a car, if you're from the R Factor 2 land, you might see as familiar. It's the same car that was released by Aphid God and a whole group of folks for both R Factor 2 and Assetto Corsa, and was updated for Assetto Corsa here just last year, 2021, with a whole new tire model, implementation, a whole host of other changes, and it is a very, very nice driving car, and I'm happy I chose to drive this. Oh, as the car gets really loose there. I think it would have been obvious to race some Formula cars around here, which I also recommend. It's a lot of fun, especially the ones with the little wings sprouting on them. But the Can-Am car here is so enjoyable, really hard to drive, you can't tell, but very rewarding. And I think for some of the folks that don't quite like Assetto Corsa, you might be surprised in how good it feels. You really feel the tire in this car. Definitely car dependent. You need a good car to have a really good time, but it is such a good one. The McLaren itself that I'm racing against and trying to chase down here with Bruce, I think is a conversion from one of the older games. Not quite as nice to drive, although it's not too bad, but certainly very nice to race against, and helps us create a fairly accurate grid here for this inaugural Can-Am race. I think I'm just barely quicker than McLaren, as I saw a lock up in front. So he's trying to push as well. Can maybe see the Surtees car closing in the mirrors. So easy to lock it up and just run a bit wide. Not a lot of runoff in a lot of the track. You certainly make contact with those big sand dunes and berms, end your race pretty quickly. All right, but come over the rise here, the hump, get it up to second gear. Helps coincide with where you need to lift the throttle, at least in this car. Down a second. Just nice and easy on the throttle. Find this circuit in this car does a really nice job of enforcing good driving behavior, especially with the 3 pedals and H pattern and everything. You need to be flipping your shifts, heel and towing on the downshifts. Dance the wheel a little bit there. If you don't, the rear end will definitely swap on you. Oh, as I hit a bump there on the inside, shot me wide. All right, 5 laps to go, about halfway through, and I'm definitely closing in on McLaren, but how close can I actually get? Just frustrating to get through turn 3 there, but so many times gone wide. There's a cool video documentary, James Gardner from Grand Prix fame and many other movies, actually did pursue real racing and owned a racing team for F5000, I think in 1969, and there's a great documentary that follows in throughout the season, and they do cover this race for F5000, and there is a brutal accident in that corner, turn 3. And luckily, I believe everybody walked away from it somehow, but one of those treacherous corners, and something that I saw not too long ago, actually, and checked in on the status of this track, and so happy to see it done now. All right, tiptoe it there. That was a pretty nice exit. He runs a bit wide, so do I, though. Following him, it's so easy to follow another driver instead of driving your own line. Dips on the dirt just a little bit as I wait to get on the throttle, right on the edge of grip. Need to get down to first gear before the track falls away over the rise there, and just try to find the apex. A lot of dust in the face. Through the left-hander here. There we go. And another lap, 4 to go. Should have plenty of time to get around him. Just don't make a mistake. We might actually catch a few lapped cars here. I've got a nice field, 20 cars. It's not entirely accurate to the race, but it's fairly close. Second gear. They'll spice things up a bit. Right through the left-hander. He hops on the curve a lot like Eamon did. Car breaks away on the entrance to turn 7. That corner is a lot trickier than it looks like it's supposed to be, and I think it's just the camber of the track there that makes it so. Follow him out wide. Might get a nice run down the straightaway, but once again the hump stands in our way. The Oldsmobile, I think Chevy engine in this one in front. Winds away. Oh, he gets a lot of air there over the rise. Down to second gear into turn 10. He's a little bit slower than me through there. Trying to take a nice wide entrance. He's going to fade out wide a little bit like Donahue. Not close enough this time to stab it up the inside, though. Slide the car through bridge corner. Just nicks the edge of the pavement. You can see the car mess itself up. It's unbelievable, though. I know they're AI, and I love racing the AI, but these are some really good AI around here. Slide the car through name row. Well, I almost catch myself out there. It was a close one. Just nips the curbs. That would be really hard to do. You wouldn't definitely not want to do that in real life. Risk blowing a tire, I'm sure, quite easily. Just hits the inside curb there too. Helps hook the car around though. Might be why he's so quick. Right to the inside. No lap cars in front just yet. Just 3 laps to go though. Down to second gear. Into turn 7. Get on the throttle nice and early. Down to the carousel. A little bit of a run, but not quite close enough to throw it up the inside. Try to maybe maximize the exit here. Get on the throttle, help rotate the car. Just catch the power slide without getting completely out of it. Oh, right in the back of McLaren. Up to 4th gear, come over the top of the hill. Oh, he runs right to the guardrail, up the inside of him. Come into the gulch. To the edge of the circuit. There we go. Squeeze him out there. He luckily gave that to me, but however you get past is valid. Tank slapper on the exit, able to catch it though. Alright, try to rock it away then. I think I'm quicker through most of the track. I just got to keep it on the track, which is easier said than done. Alright, come across the line. I'll take a look at the pit board. Yeah, 2 laps to go, P1. Nobody in front, so just enjoy the lapping at Mont Tremblant. Waiting on the throttles. I come over the top of the hill, walked it right out to the edge. Down to second gear. Still see McLaren there, but he's falling backwards just a little bit. See one car in the distance there. You do see the other cars a lot, and it would be such a great track to spectate on as we got a couple lap cars right in front of me. It's second gear. Oh, we're gonna slide wide. It's such a great track to spectate on because you see the track loop around a lot. You would absolutely see the cars in more than one corner at a time. From almost every viewing angle. We've got a long string of cars in front. See what I can do to get around them. AI are quite slow and dangerous in spots. Over the rise there, over the hump. Able to snake through 2 of them. Come into turn 10. Oh, we're going to lock up the brakes into the gulch. Did that so many times in this race. Able to hold it on the circuit though, down to first gear. Dust being kicked up in front. See if we can come to the final corner and get up the inside of a few cars at least. throttle, come across to the front straightaway. I believe get the one to go. There we go. Just wait in line here, get up the inside. Try not to play bumper cars with the slower traffic. McLaren, though, I think behind me, maybe making decent time through them, so try not to hold myself up. For as much as the AI do get held up through lap traffic a bit, also can happen to you too if you're not willing to push them out of the way. There we go, get around the outside of that slow car. To turn 7, such a tricky corner this one, just with the camber the way it is. Slide the car on the way in just to prove the point. There we go, get through there nice and easily. McLaren way far behind now, so take it easy through the carousel. Just get on that throttle, help rotate the car. V8 engine behind, purrs to life. I'll head towards the hump for the final time. On the throttle just a little bit too soon. You don't want to over rev there if you can avoid it. Down to second gear for turn 10. Trying to maybe finally hit turn 11. Wreck a little early, but there we go. Got the apex at least once in this race. Come up the hill to Bridge Corner. Really cool rhythm section of the track, all of this. Second gear. Try not to run wide again through here, through the kink. Up to Name Row corner, final turn. There we go. Fun little Can-Am race. Getting around McLaren there about halfway through, and running to the victory. It's a circuit that will keep you busy, but Mont Tremblant is an absolute motorsports classic, recreated here beautifully in Assetto Corsa. Made mention during the race, but I've followed P. Cody's development process for quite a while. Seeing it all come together in the end is quite remarkable. It's way more detailed and way more fun than I ever thought it could be, to be honest. And I thought it could be quite great, but this track itself just shows you how much fun it was to race cars back in the 1960s and 70s. Be described as nothing but a pure racing circuit, and driving something as pure as a Can-Am car around here, I really can't imagine much better. So I hope you enjoyed this, a bit scrappy at times, but in case I have to say it, this is absolutely a combination I recommend. Both the car and the track are available for free at Race Department. You can go out and have yourselves a good Can-Am race, but really any car that you enjoy, especially vintage cars, I think will be quite at home at Mont Tremblant. So it's been a little bit of time since I've done a review of a circuit or a car in Assetto Corsa, and I know there's a few more good ones on the horizon, so I can't wait to take a look at those. But I think for now I'm going to get back to doing a few laps around this circuit. So until next time, thank you for watching. This is GP Laps, and I'll see you all in the next one.